Well, it's the 30th of June, a very wet Tuesday morning. Welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey Ozama. Bukola, what are you tracking? Good morning.
Well, it appears a season of reforms. Call it one and you would not be right. President Bola Tinubu has initiated or approved, as you would call it, during the Federal Executive Council, a round of reforms for the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC. And so henceforth, the NYSC may not be the same as you now know it, as part of the reforms indicate that a civilian will now head that institution, while the operations of the NYSC will continue to be managed by the military. This amongst other reforms that were announced after yesterday's Federal Executive Council meeting. Jeffrey.
As a matter of fact, I want to read some of the, I hope that the producer can get this out for us. So some of the things that were stated as far as the reform that the Honorable Minister of Youth Development had written on his official handle on social media. It says some of the landmark reforms will include, at some point the director will put it up for us, a technology-driven call-up process, risk-sensitive deployment to better protect core members, a redesigned 6 weeks orientation program with stronger focus on leadership, entrepreneurship, digital skills, and specialized career streams. Number 4, skill-based primary assignments. This is particularly interesting. Skill-based primary assignments aligned with academic background and career pathway. So an engineer should go to where engineers are needed. Bankers should go to where bankers are needed. Entrepreneurs should go to entrepreneurial, wherever entrepreneurs are found. Modern governance with civilian operational leadership. So we may not have the lieutenant generals or brigadier generals that is where leading the NYSC anymore, but the military will continue to provide security support, maybe at the camps. Improve camp standards through a national grading and certification system, because I think you have the last one. I think a new graduation ceremony to replace the POP and redesigned NYSC uniform that reflects professionalism and national pride. It looks good, right? On paper.
Well, looking very good.
Some people are even calling for the scrap of NYSC in general.
And
but rather than scrap, they are saying we can reform it and make it more market-friendly.
Certainly not a scrapping of the NYSC. If you have been through, the National Youth Service Corps scheme in this country and you have experienced another part of Nigeria rather than what you were familiar with in your university days or growing up, you would fully and wholly embrace the NYSC scheme as one that unifies the country and helps you appreciate the beauty of Nigeria and the beauty of the Nigerian people, who are very hospitable and who are very warm and who are very welcoming of visitors to their own location, to their own community. The skill-based reform is rather interesting for those who have, experienced the NYSC prior to this time, would, know that not necessarily all deployments, immediately after the orientation camp are skills-based. Some would have particularly achieved expertise in one area and then they are deployed to a far-flung community to teach. That was my own personal experience, as a core member right after orientation, deployed across water somewhere in former President Jonathan's community in Ogwea to teach in Bayelsa State with no experience of teaching in any way, shape or form. And so I had to go job hunting on my own. So this is particularly exciting for me. Now, I do not quite know, the details will unfold, in the coming days. If this skill-based and the extension of the orientation camp from, I believe, 2 weeks, Jeffrey, to 6 weeks, right, would also mean some form of additional, training for NYSC core members, before redeployment. That's another exciting part of the scheme. Would it be a crash course in a particular hands-on skill acquisition scheme to further empower the Nigerian youths and make them able, to stand on their own, regardless of whether a job comes through right after exiting the NYSC scheme, such that they're unable to at least earn a living right after the orientation scheme.
Absolutely.
Jeffrey.
So let's also talk about what our eyes, literally the eyes of the entire world is on South Africa right now because of the match and match. Bukola, as a matter of fact, the leader of the match and match, Jacinda, I think that's her name, is literally denying or distancing herself from today's June 30th deadline given by citizens who are fighting illegal or undocumented immigrants in this sense. Now, she said, is the other group, I've forgotten their name, I think it's a Zulu name they call, there's this gentleman, I can't even pronounce his name correctly, so I won't even try for now, who is leading his own march as well, the one who you see where the Zulu regalia leading certain people across the streets of Johannesburg to carry out, their immigration or trying to see how they can, send undocumented immigrants out of their country, which a lot of people have criticized that you may vent and disagree with undocumented immigrants, but there's a government in South Africa that should take responsibility for doing all of this. Well, they had put June the 30th, which is today, as the day that they expect all undocumented immigrants to leave South Africa. Everybody's looking in that direction. Nigeria sent a plane last night it was supposed to land in Joburg at about 9 p.m., leave Joburg at about midnight, and we expect that they should have arrived today. I guess maybe this, I don't know whether this is arrival or so, but via air peace. So see how people come back. It's just about 5 to 6 hours flight. So about 271 Nigerians expected back into the country, and they should have been back by now. But I think this is the previous one, though, where our eyes are at the airports. We're going to touch base with South Africa and Johannesburg and several other places. But you see, for me, I will continue to say this is more of Afrophobia than xenophobia. And I did challenge the gentleman who we interviewed that day. I said, I'll take whatever you guys are doing seriously if you go to places like Western Cape, especially Cape Town, because you cannot tell me that all the foreigners that are whites, French, German, the Dutch guys, the people from the United Kingdom, all of them are documented in Cape Town. I don't want to believe that they are all documented. So until you go and carry out your anti-immigration campaign in places like Western Cape, in certain areas, then I'll take you seriously. Else, this is just politics. You have a right to say you don't want undocumented immigrants, but taking laws into your hand, it can lead to something else, Bukola.
Well, we're watching out for the march-on-march protests in South Africa today. And, it's interesting to note that according to reports, it's not just Nigerian nationals and Ghanaian nationals that have exited the country amid this round of borrowing Jeffrey's, nomenclature and Afrophobia. Several thousands of Africans have exited South Africa. And, some of the commentaries coming through have been heartbroken. South Africans may have gotten the feedback from other African nationals about how disheartening this Afrophobia is, about how, their disposition towards other African nationals residing in their country, doing business in their country, and generally pursuing happiness and, a decent life in their country. They have pushed back on the condemnation of their disposition towards other Africans, and saying, look, if they tag us xenophobic, then so be it. They particularly blame Nigerians for being responsible for drugs and crimes in their country, for being responsible for the despondency that some of their children have now descended into, perhaps as a result of relations and societal ills in that particular country. And that is more heartbreaking than anything else, because it then makes you wonder if there is more to this round of Afrophobia than meets the eye. And, you know, watching that report from our South Africa correspondent yesterday also helps you, you know, capture the sentiment of South Africans and how really this should be viewed, not just from one prison, because he did say that, you know, drugs and crime in South Africa is more has to do with other issues, wider, you know, economic issues, than looking at it from the standpoint of, you know, just one particular national of other countries being responsible for it. And so how is the government tackling this? We've also heard President Cyril Ramaphosa asking people, South Africans, to protest peacefully and not take laws into their hands. But does that really address the issue? Because another part of the conversation is that this is more political than, you know, anything else, because there are references to a particular speech in which he did attribute the rate of unemployment to, you know, migration, to many foreign nationals coming to take up jobs in South Africa. So that also shows that indeed it's part of the political sentiment, perhaps to, you know, get more support, you know, from the people. And so there must be more calls, more engagements from the diplomatic community in South Africa, not just to the Nigerian diplomatic community, but other, you know, African diplomatic community generally across board, to engage South Africa, the South African government, on the best way to approach this, because this has resulted, Jeffrey, in greater consequences than you and I can think of. I was reading a report of a Malawian returning to his country, heartbroken because he's leaving 4 children behind. We've heard about Nigerians who have returned home, who have practically abandoned businesses built over a decade and have returned home to start all over. There's nothing more heartbreaking than that, Jeffrey.
It's very disturbing. I'm imagining that if Madiba was alive, he would be squirming on his chair, around his chair, seeing what is going on. It's very heartbreaking. But moving on from that, there's a report that came through, Bukola, about what the United States is now revealing as to, in terms of counterterrorism that was carried out in Nigeria. The U.S. Deputy Assistant to the President and Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the National Security Council, Sebastian Gorka, granted an interview, and Bukola, what he said was very, very terrifying, if you will. Let me just read from one of the dailies. A senior United States counterterrorism official claimed that American forces, listen to this, recovered the largest cache of terrorist electronic materials since 9/11 attacks during a recent counterterrorism operation against ISWAP in northeast Nigeria. So that line caught my attention. Largest cache of terrorist electronic material. So if you think that these guys were dealing with in the northwest or northeast, the terrorists in general in Nigeria, it's just a coincidence, it just happenstance, then you'll be in for a shock. But we're happy with the collaboration with the United States. They have better sophistry in terms of weaponry, in terms of everything that has to do with warfare. So they've supported us to make sure that this is curtailed as much as possible. So can you imagine the level of planning that went into the execution of 9/11 that has become somewhat of a pointer to how terrorists can operate successfully, and is a very disturbing history in American story and the global terrorism story around the world, if you will. To say that what was recovered in Nigeria during their counterterrorism, I think about 199 terrorists were killed, is, let me read that word again, recovered the largest cache
since 9/11.
Since 9/11. So comparing it to 9/11 is what is very disturbing. I had to slow down to make sure I'm seeing what I'm reading and be sure that this is in fact a fact. But we thank the American government. We thank everyone who is responsible for making this happen. But we need to keep up the tempo and make sure that we ensure that all that we have, we use it and deploy it to save and rescue our people who are in captivity and ensure it doesn't happen again.
And you know, this throws up the question Kayode always asks about terrorism. Why does Nigeria happen to be a fertile ground for banditry, for terrorism, for kidnapping, for a field of bloodshed. Because if that is the largest cache of electronic materials discovered from terrorists since 9/11, then they're practically saying that Nigeria is the capital of terrorism in the world. Then why does Nigeria happen to be a fertile ground for terrorist operations, for activities? The Minister of Interior did say in the last 12 or 24 hours or so that some Boko Haram and ISWAP commanders were arrested on their way back from, pilgrimage. And so how did they travel and escape the scrutiny of security operatives, of immigration officials? Some are asking, how did they even get their passports in the first place? There must be more resolve. There must be more, interventions by security operatives and, by the government to ensure that these commanders are intercepted, that their funds, their stream of funds, are intercepted as well, such that whatever it is that ensures that the operations go smooth sail is nipped in the bud. Because we commend the resolve of those on the field that are fighting against this. But as I often say, that it would look as if we're tackling the symptoms rather than the root causes. Jeffrey, I recall just 2 weeks ago or thereabout, when we interviewed a security expert, he did say that the recruitment is also part of the problem. When they're recruited with as high as 500,000 naira, and there are no jobs in the states, there are no jobs even in capitals, then it's an easy prey for young persons who are looking for a meaningful means of gainful employment, and then they'll be radicalized. The
conversation for another day. We'll take a break, and when we come back after this break, we'll bring you the daily. Stay with us.
Welcome back. If you've looked through the papers this morning, you'd see that it's a potpourri of stories, from politics to the oil sector and indeed other security stories. Let's have joining us this morning Mr. Adeni Ifetayo, the MD of Megastar Magazine and, of course, public affairs analyst, who joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Adeni, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to join from Abuja.
Yes, you're welcome. Let's get right into it. And the Guardian newspaper is first on the list this morning. Take a look at the big story on the front page. Post-primaries is still getting everyone, particularly in the political space, talking. And here's the story. You see the spread there of the actors, from INEC to the candidates, and of course to, leaders of the opposition party. Row in APC as Atiku obedience alleged sabotage of opposition. Of course, the issues are not far-fetched. The NDC court case, the ADC court case as well. So, Mr. Ifetayo, what's your thinking as far as the resolution of these issues are concerned ahead of January 2027?
All right. For me, I think the opposition too, they should put their house in order. They have an assignment to do if you are going to wrestle power, or if you are going to emerge in the 2027 election. I think they should be more concerned about them. But of course, it's good for them to raise an alarm where they feel that the actor, that's the INEC, who are supposed to do their job, saying that we are going to deregister you, we are going to remove you because of this, because of that, we are not going to recognize you because of the faction. I think the opposition should put their house in order. And of course, they say the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. So I just hope they will do justice to it, because where there is no opposition, I don't think democracy can thrive. So, and of course, to the APC, you are once opposition, you have your movement, you have your time. They should allow opposition to thrive. I remember, let me pick a slang from our our president who said, let the poor breathe. So because they are not in power, they should allow the opposition to breathe, because competition is also healthy in in an environment, of course, in our own democracy, so that it will not turn to a one-party state, or it will not turn to a one-party country. So everybody should put their house in order, come together. If you really want to wrestle power, if you really think you can give a better agenda, a better dividend of democracy to Nigerians, I think they should more focus on what they are going to do differently from what the government is doing. And of course, their unity also will make them to stand a better chance come 2027.
Let's go to this Nigeria. This Nigeria is the one we're leading with on this particular one. FG orders NYSC overhaul after 53 years. Civilians to lead scheme, reforms support $1 trillion economy goal. So we're going to see a new kind of NYSC. At the beginning of the program, we did reel out some of the highlights as listed by the young Minister of Youth. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's a good thing. You know, you can't, I've always said it, you can't continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. I'm sure the federal government finally listened. There have been a complaint of brain drain. You know, some of our, in quotes, stand to be corrected, some of our youth or new graduates, they are not employable and all of that. So what are they doing about it? Giving them more training, especially since the dispensation of the internet, robotic, AI, and I want to share these or align with what they are doing. I remember about 15 years ago, I came from a community somewhere in Ogun State where it's somehow industrialized, and one of our king called some of us and said, the industry in our community, they said they cannot employ our youth because they are not studying engineering and all of that. Tell your brother, tell your cousin who are in secondary school that whatever it is they want to do so that they can be employable, they should do engineering course. So it's the same thing. STEM is taking over, AI, robotic is taking over, entrepreneurship, you know, is taking over. Whatever it is you want to do, you know, there must be a bit of entrepreneurship. So if the federal government are saying that they want to do that, so they want to train our youth corps, even if they want to seek a greener pasture abroad so that they can be employable, is a good one from the young minister who have thought it wise that this thing must not continue this way, so that we can give our young graduates a chance, you know, to be employable, or if they choose to found or establish a business on their own so that they can run it better. So the place of internship, so should be also put in consideration. And of course, everything will snowball into economic prosperity.
Well, let's get to another story that's just as important, and it's on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. The Vanguard newspaper. Take a look at this. You know, it began from about yesterday. FG orders marketers to reduce fuel price. And there are just a few riders here. Let's look through those riders. Dangote Refinery determines price changes that's ascribed to marketers. NLC blames government for fuel price standoff. Marketers slow to adjust prices. That's ascribed to the OGSPAN. You know, and there's another story, you know, on the front page of another paper that also shows federal government, you know, ordering marketers. And right there is the picture of the Minister of State for Petroleum. You know, and I'm wondering how effective that would be, you know, under the new governance of petroleum sector regime. Will it be as effective, or you know, we've exited that stage where there will be, you know, the big stick wielded on marketers that would be effective to ensure the reduction of price of petroleum?
No, I'm not sure, because they are all businessmen and they are there to also make profit. And apart from that, if you remember, in as much the federal government said the crude oil should be sold to Dangote in Naira, you know, so that we can refine everything locally, so that the price can be reduced and all of that. But you discover that after the promise, maybe they are going to give him 5 vessels every month, but they have been short of that. There have been shortage of the number of vessels of crude oil they are supposed to give to him, and he has to source the remaining one international. Even some of these marketers too. So by the time they look at the cost of freight, the cost of insurance, and all of that, it build up into it. But I think federal government can still, engage them, because when it comes to pump price, it's really cut across. Whether you are in different sector of the economy, at least you move from point A to point B, you power your house and do so many things with some of these things. So federal government can still come in form of some of their taxes they impose in some of these things, so that they too, they can shift ground. You won't just tell a man and say, oh, no, you need to reduce your price, because what is happening globally, they've reduced their price. So how do you have the same environment, the level playing environment that they have internationally in our local market? So those are the things government needs to exchange. If there's a way they can do, I'm not saying subsidizing the fuel price, we usually they remit maybe 5%, 2% of this. You can slash it by 50%, so that until the whole thing will be stabilized. So they need to play more role than just paying a lip service and say, please, you need to reduce your prices, because everything, when it comes to petroleum, affects every Nigerian, whether you are rich or you are poor, you are middle class.
All right, let's go to, I think, the paper of interest. And I'm not going to take the lead story, because that's what you just spoke about, the New Telegraph. You talked about FG to marketers. Let's talk about the stories, the two stories besides the picture. Troops rescued 10 abducted NECO candidates in Borno. And I think that happened in Askira Uba local government area of Borno State, in Lassa Government Day Secondary School, where we understand the terrorists went there and kidnapped students who are writing these exams. And I think a teacher was killed. But we're grateful for the quick response of our troops, our gallant soldiers, for bringing these children back, because we already have some in captivity. Adding this to the list would have been something else. But while you're speaking to that, I also like you to binge on Nail Fund clamping down on universities withholding tuition refunds. Apparently, Nail Fund has paid some fees, but the school, maybe the student that paid the fees, and Nail Fund has also paid, the school was supposed to refund the fee, and they haven't done that. And talks about the issue of arbitrary increase of fees. If you can speak to those two stories.
All right, let me start with, I will commend our troop who responded gallantly. I'm still saying it, I'll still continue to say it. Our government needs to be more proactive than reactionary. You understand what I'm saying? Some of these schools have been there. I've said it. What will it cost them? Most of the governors, they have security votes. What will it take you to build some more police posts or security posts, deploy CCTV camera, drone, where you monitor? Thank God for the world of internet, seeing what is going on. Because it will have been another thing if the attack were not, our troop did not come in on time. God forbid we'll be talking another thing again. We're having said that they need to do more. What are they using their security votes to do? These are the time they need to be transparent. Oh, I collect 2 naira, even if you don't want to mention, from the security vote, we procure this equipment, we've equip our police, our local vigilante, and all of that. Anyway, I just hope they can do better next time and secure our school properly, especially public school for that matter. And also, talking about our NEF fund clamp down on university, is a good one until they make a case. I won't say a scapegoat, until they, show that they can bite as well. It's not just for them to talk. You have released funds, somebody has paid, and they should do a refund. It's as simple as that. It doesn't take a magic to do that. And if people are not, if an institution is not doing that, name them and let anti-graffiti, switch into the action and begin to ask questions. Who are the money? Who was withholding it? Who are the accountants? So those are the things that they need to do. It's not just for us to talk about it and it ends there, but there must be an action about it. I'm sure maybe the next time we hear this thing, they will also complain that there are some institutions, increasing their fee. If you give them a template and see what they are charging, if we commemorate with their economy or the reality or their environment, because don't let us forget, federal government also give them some kind of subvention, especially some of these universities. How are they using it? Those are the questions that should be asked, and Nigerians should be made to know the outcome of it. Not just we say it now and then that's all until another thing will happen.
Well, yes, indeed, Mr. Fetayo, a good way to anchor it, and of course to anchor the segment. But there's also one story that we may need to be reflecting on after this. APC submits candidate lists to INEC, upholds rep speaker's appeals. We may all need to go through that list and see what it's looking like against a backdrop of the reviews of how the primaries went. But we must thank you very much. It's that Denny Fetayo is the MD at Megastar magazine and a public affairs analyst. Thank you for coming through on today's newspaper review segment. Jeffrey.
From here, we'll head straight to Borno State. We did tell you Lassa Government Secondary School in one of the local government areas in Borno State. There was an incident yesterday that led to the death of a teacher, we understand, but we need to confirm that with our next guest. But students were abducted while they went to write their NECO exams. Thank goodness they've been rescued by our gallant troops of Operation Hadinkai. Let's bring in the Public Relations Officer of the Police Command in Borno State, Nahum Dasso. Mr. Dasso, thank you for coming on the program and great to see you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you, sir. Thank you for having me.
So, walk us back exactly what happened. How did these terrorists, how were they able to carry out this attack and abduct these children and confirm to us whether or not a teacher was killed? Just give us an overview of what really played out, because I've heard stories, I saw a remark somewhere, that before that school, there are like 3 checkpoints, 1 a military and 2 police checkpoints, if you call it a checkpoint, but posts where we see security presence. But how were these terrorists able to pass through these posts or these positions that were occupied by armed forces or policemen to the point of being able to abduct these children? We're happy they are being released, but walk us through all of the stories we're hearing concerning this incident in Lassa.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here once again. Well, yes, the incident that happened is quite an unfortunate incident, which has really brought out so many concerns in regards to the fact that it was students that were abducted. So what happened at about 9 a.m. in the morning of yesterday, we had a large number of gunmen who invaded Lassa community. Yesterday particularly was the market day of Lassa, where they disguised themselves and concealed their weapons and snuck into the town, started shooting sporadically, which led to, unfortunately, to the death of a teacher, and 1 other teacher was shot. Thereafter, we later got reports that some students, out of panic pandemonium, got missing. Within the period of time, by the troops of the Operation Hadinkai, who are coordinating the operations here in the Northeast, led an operation where even the Commissioner of Police directed the area commander, Askira Oba, to also lead Department of Police team. They were able to go into the bush, comb the area, and luckily we were able to rescue about 10 victims so far.
So let me understand, how many people were missing or abducted in this sense? How many have been rescued?
Well, from the fillers of information we've gotten, according to our preliminary reports, we don't have that specified number, except we are hoping by this morning, by 8 a.m., we are hoping to have a complete head-to-head count, because some of these students, we believe that they must have fled to other neighboring villages, which we've started getting reports from community people. And we're also trying to reconcile these numbers with the school, with the parents, and other critical stakeholders. But as of now, we are hoping to get more feedbacks, but what is certain is at least 10 victims were abducted.
Oh dear. I believe you're trying to say that 10 victims were abducted. So how many, you were going to clarify, how many have been rescued? Are there any ones still in captivity?
As of now, we don't have the specific number if there are any students still in captivity. But what is certain is 10 have been rescued so far. But I'll come up to bring up an update in that regards because, like I mentioned earlier, at about 8 a.m. and to 8:30 this morning, I believe even the Commissioner of Education over here is moving to the scene to see that there is an head count and also reconciliating numbers with the parents and neighboring communities.
Now, talk to us about Askira Uba, because prior to this time, I believe last month, there was a report that in this same local government, in Musa village to be precise, there was an attack and abduction of over 40 persons. I know that there have been some rescues lately. I'm not quite sure if those 40 persons were part of those that were rescued. Why is Askira Uba constantly under attack?
Well, from the peak of the activities of these suspected insurgents who have been around the, like we all know, the Sambisa forest, Askira Uba itself is within the fringes of this, the outskirts area of the Sambisa forest. They are the border town which connects Borno State and Adamawa State. So one major challenge we've had maybe is the border itself, because it's not really easy policing and also providing security for along the borderland areas. I'm sure you are aware about this. So Askira Uba itself and the hill area, the proximity based on the rocky area, these insurgents tend to exploit those opportunities to invade. Sometimes they are there for logistics. Like I mentioned, that particular yesterday was the market day of the Lassa community. So we believe that they wanted to exploit those opportunities to see on how they can reimburse themselves with more logistics. Then after then they did the attack to the school, and in which we appreciate the fact that their clandestine act was not given a space for them to do whatever they wanted to do. So like you actually mentioned, Askira Uba is really a community who have been reintegrated back, and these insurgents, out of their terror acts, are trying to put and instill fear into these community members to leave those particular communities. And for the case that was recorded, I think on the sometimes around May 15th or 19th of May, where school students were adopted, pupils around the ages of 5 to 7 years were adopted at Musa community. Since after then, it has gave us a roadmap for us to strengthen on how our operational competence is. One thing we focus on, if you notice with these recent incidents, is that there is improvement in how we respond to incidences, particularly when they happen. So we have used that to see and realize on our mistakes and areas of where we are going to improve more, and that has been positive so far. So we are looking forward to see on how we can police those communities and those areas more safer for all.
So while response is commendable, what about a more proactive approach? Because if Askira Uba is susceptible to constant attacks, he then suggests that it's perhaps a safe haven for the insurgents, and they're always somewhere around beneath the rocks or in the forest areas in proximity to the Sambisa forest. So why isn't there a proactive clearance operation of these areas to rein in on any terrorist enclave in that area?
Well, if you have followed most recently, especially with the efforts of the Nigerian Air Component, they've really been increased visibility when it comes to security deployment in those areas. I followed up to see that we are having more increased visibility and more response to incidences like this. It is quite not really easy to secure those communities based on, I told you of the proximity of the border communities between Adamawa State and Borno State. I would say we are looking forward to increase more visibility of security and also seeing on how we can be able to curb such type of incidents and prevent it from happening again. Please have my words, I'll show you on that.
I'm not talking about increased operations or increased security for the area. I'm talking about taking the fight to the terrorist enclaves themselves, because if there is constant attack, as we have seen in Borno, then that means that the terrorists are in the forest areas, they're in the caves, as you have said. So why isn't there a more proactive approach, taking the fight into their camps to get them out? What are the challenges? What do the operatives what don't they have that they require to take this fight to the camp of the enemy?
Well, it doesn't require much. There have been most of these operations that have been coordinated by the military under the Operation Harding Fair, where we have had series of offensive attacks to these people. What we should clamor more for is for more of these particular attacks. And like I mentioned, you have my words on that, because I believe one of the statements most recently made by the theater commander Operation Harding Fair, and even the minister and the chief of defense staff, is to say that they mock them all in those areas. So please be rest assured that these type of operations are going to be ongoing. Instead of us being proactive, like you mentioned, we are going to be more reactive. And from the policing angle, we are focused on more on intelligence gathering and also partnering with the stakeholders of those communities, so that they will become part of an instrument of this of us policing those areas and communities, because it's only intelligence that could help us to create those environments for us to do the fight against these insurgents.
So, Mr. Dasso, walk us through a bit of what I call security mapping. I know it's not everything you can say on national television for security reasons, but let's talk about, if you map the 27 local government areas of the states across the 3 senatorial districts, which areas are actually quite prone to these attacks often? Let's begin with that before I ask my next set of questions.
Well, like you actually mentioned, it's not everything that I would like to disclose on national operations ongoing. In most of these communities, are you with me, please?
Yes, I am. I'm listening to you.
Okay, I would say most of these communities that are affected are those that are outside the fringes, but those are within the border areas of Borno states. Especially speaking about like the southern Borno is a community where these purported attacks have taken place concurrently for some period of time.
Oh dear.
The resistance, the securities. Secondly, again, if you check in the northern Borno, speaking about places like Calabarge, Ran, and most of all these other the Lake Chad region area, there have been strict prevention of these insurgents from invading into the community itself.
So the reason I ask that is because if you know where your challenges are, you would have measures to be able to curb them. So the question was very deliberate without trying to divulge much of information. So from your own analytics, from the police point of view, what are the big issues? Is it a regular, very stubborn issues that we're dealing with, porous borders, ungoverned spaces, insufficient number of men to man these spaces? What exactly are the highlights here that we need to take? Because I'm asking on the backdrop of the fact that state police has been touted. Now the law has been passed, it's heading to the state assemblies for it to become a ground, not part of our constitution. So if we don't understand these things at the basic level, then we're going to get the same results in some of these places that are prone to such attacks as we've recorded in places like Borno, where most of these things started from.
Well, you're in line, and I would say one major factor, especially from the police angle, the major gap that we mostly used to have in particular attacks like this is we want more information sharing. We want more actionable intelligence to be shared by, and this is what we're expecting from members of the community. Earlier, yesterday, the Commissioner of Police was drafting a framework where we are going to see on having a reporting mechanisms for these members of the public to find easy access in sharing timely information. What I'm trying to explain in this is that we want to have a practical aspect of policing where it's going to be done by the community itself through the community policing initiative. In seeing that whenever these insurgents are leaving a particular region, we are having timely information from the community members right from the grassroots, feeding us with timely information so that it will help us to be proactive and preempt this attack from becoming a catastrophe.
The question I did ask before my colleague comes in is a question of ungoverned spaces. I mopped it up in the question I asked just now before you responded. Where are the ungoverned spaces that I don't know whether we need to know that, but these are places where you know that it's quite difficult to police and to man effectively, because this is where technology comes in. That's what I'm asking exactly.
Well, for the ungoverned spaces which we can speak about is those areas that are outside the parapet area of where these community people, these are communities that they were displaced for some particular period of time, and it's really not easy for them reintegrating back to the communities. Most of the areas which used to be habitat for humans and all are mostly some of them are still under threats based on the threat analysis that we've identified. But still, like you mentioned, be rest assured that there is going to be more increase, especially in surveillance intelligence reports and by the use of sophisticated technologies like the drone and I think the air components are really doing excellently well in doing a very good surveillance. Thank you.
All right, so we'll take it from you. From this conversation, I don't think we heard that you've not been able to confirm to us how many people were abducted, but you've been able to confirm to us that a teacher was killed, a teacher was hurt, and then the 10 students have been released by the abductors, or were rescued by troops from the abductors. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, that's correct. And to add up again to more information in regards to the incidents, unfortunately yesterday, according to the statements of the spokesperson of the theater command, Operation Hadinkai, also stated that we had 2 people who paid the supreme price, in which I feel this should not go under the carpet. It's something that we should really condole with the families of particularly a soldier and a member of the civil who lost their life while the rescue operation went on yesterday.
For the soldier and the member of the vigilante of the Joint Task Force, the Civilian Joint Task Force, our thoughts and our prayers are with the families. We thank them for their service. We appreciate their efforts in helping to keep our nation safe. Daso Nahum, PRO of the Police Command in Borno State, thank you for coming on the program. We appreciate it. All right, Bukola.
And let's get right into the next one. And we're looking at politics, especially ahead of the 2027 general elections. We continue our conversation on the litigation challenges of the Nigeria Democratic Congress. And joining us on this one is Mr. Dixon Irebu, is a Federal House of Representatives aspirant of the NDC. He joins us virtually this morning. Mr. Irebu, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Brief. You may need to unmute your device so that we can hear you. And while you're doing that, perhaps I should just get right into it. What many Nigerians would like to know is where exactly are we, or where is the NDC more specifically in its fight to ensure that its candidates are secure as they head to the ballot and there is no litigation before them. And while you're doing that, we'd also like you to talk to us about this new suit that has been adjourned by a federal high court in Abuja, I believe by a fresh set of litigants. So talk to us about these litigation challenges.
I don't know about the fresh litigation that has come our way, but the one that came on Friday, I'm very much aware that it has we have a stay of execution now, and it has been appealed. And of course, INEC has gone ahead to release the code to upload successful aspirants, that is the candidates of the party, to INEC portal and all of that. So yes, the court case that came on Friday is clearly more like a distraction that attempted to scuttle our drive, but it clearly states that NDC has come to stay, and that those in the villa presently are jittery about what is going to play out come 2027, because clearly the current administration haven't seen that the authentic result that came from the 2023 election, clearly the winner would have been well pronounced and all that. And this is the person of Mr. Peter Obi, and everything is being done by the Tinubu administration to ensure that he's not on the ballot. But unfortunately, they woke up too late, because the Nigerian people as assured by Mr. Peter Obi himself that he's going to be on the ballot. The Nigerian people are with him as we moved in droves to the NDC, where by the grace of God in 2027 he will be, and so many other candidates be on the party ticket to ensure that we help rescue our country. So if there is any other litigation out there against the NDC, well, Nigerians will know better now that we have been announced better than we were announced before. These few days has really exposed the NDC a lot more to understand that though it's a young party, but the ruling party has clearly expressed its fears that this party is probably about to sack it from government. And by the grace of God, that's what will be.
Well, you didn't mention the name of the president somewhere in your commentary, but we do know that the litigant in the suit, that made the news on Friday is a certain peace movement party. And you have said that you're not aware of this fresh litigation, but this one is by the pro-tem leader of the All Democratic Alliance, who is challenging the NDC for not following due process in its registration process. And you speak confidently, about the fate of candidates of the NDC as you enter this elections. But with this emerging issues around the NDC's registration and authenticity as a political platform for expression, aren't candidates worried that there could be a court ruling that could jeopardize the fate of, their candidacy, close to the general elections?
The last time I checked, the court is not part of the schedule that INEC brought out. INEC has already released the schedule for the 2023 election, and there was no court litigation or court pronouncement that is announced in that schedule. So we have since moved on from where anybody who is doing any litigation now to distract the NDC. Like I stated earlier, they have come a bit too late. The ship has moved, the train has moved, and anybody who is attempting to scuttle this drive is probably calling for anarchy in the country. And I hope that, like I stated earlier, you said the litigant for the Friday, the PMP, the Peace Movement Party, that does not exist anywhere, because whenever the name is mentioned, it will look like PMP is one of the registered political parties in Nigeria. It's not. It's not either a registered NGO in Nigeria. So that such a body that does not exist anywhere is allowed to want to push the Nigerian democracy to completely on its knee. And we're discussing it. It's even an aberration, if you ask me. It's just how, unfortunately, rascally approach to politics has become the style. Who is afraid of Mr. Peter Obi? That's what we should be asking ourselves, because it's not just the NDC that is this first place where this trouble shooting is more like following him about, kind of. Who is afraid of him? And that's why I said Mr. President, Chief Tinubu has, of course, as Commander-in-Chief, they would have presented before him the authentic result of 2023. I'm sure he would have seen who the true winner is. And that is why they are so rattled. That's why they are so afraid to see Mr. Peter Obi on the ballot. But like I said, it's too late. Anybody who is coming in with any litigation to attempting to stop NDC is wasting his or her time. And if government is directly now going to be involved, then it will mean that this government is calling for anarchy, because we will not continue to allow this level of political rascality to continue to play out in the polity. They should stop heating up the polity and just stop.
Mr. Aribu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, fantastic. I remember the last time we had a conversation with you. You were still a member of the PDP. It's interesting, because I think it was you and Mr. Osoha were here, arguing over the Ibadan incident. Now you're strongly speaking for the NDC. So this is the politics of Nigeria. But that's just an aside.
It shouldn't slide, because yes, I was a member of the PDP, and of course we know why. If you were vying for any office and you really wanted to represent your people, you look for a platform that is not distracted. The government of the day has not pretended. They has used the FCT minister to destabilize the PDP, and there was no way one could stay in there. I've always stated,
all right.
I think
the point is well noted, so that I can throw in my question before the time runs out.
Okay. I needed to clear that part.
Yeah, let's talk about the NDC. Let's assume, without conceding, that they are responsible for what is going on in the opposition party, which they've constantly denied. Don't you think that also the political parties in this sense, some of the opposition parties like the NDC and the ADC, for instance, have a bit of a blame? I've read through the court document that happened, the ruling that happened on Friday. I know processes have been filed, a stay of execution and appeal has been filed, so we can't speak to the substantive issue. But the common decimal here is that it was a question of logo. So people are asking the question, how hard could it have been not to have changed logo in this sense? I'm not trying to dwell on the merits of the case. I'm saying that let's accept without conceding that the APC is responsible to kill the momentum of the opposition. Why does it look like the opposition itself is always opening itself up for such attacks legally?
How is that? Where did this very two-finger victory sign, where did it get, a challenge? Like I said, the process has far taken off. And anybody doing anything now is wasting his or her time. Logo was not our problem. If at the time the registration of the party, INEC insisted, or through the court order that, eventually affirmed that INEC should register the Nigeria Democratic Congress, if that was not exhausted at that time, then we would have been discussing whether we were able to get a logo or not. It has been concluded, and that logo is on the INEC portal. So logo is not it was never and has never been a challenge for the NDC. Rather, like I stated, some medicine interloper, being instigated from wherever, the usual environment, because the APC has become the usual suspect in the allegation clearly out there in the public that they are doing everything possible to distract, destabilize the opposition party, particularly the main opposition leader, which is Mr. Peter Obi. Everywhere he has gone, the APC government, led by Mr. Tinubu, has clearly shown that it is afraid of the Peter Obi candidature. And that is why they did everything possible when he was in LP. They did what they did to destabilize the LP. He moved into the ADC. And of course, the ADC had its crisis and all of that. And Mr. Peter Obi, now known as the authentic master strategist, had to move. And having moved into the NDC on the 3rd of May, if we can all understand what is playing out, he moved in on the 3rd of May into the NDC, and on the 5th of May, this case, so-called by the PMP, was filed. So the question that we should be asking is, who is after Mr. Peter Obi? Who is afraid of Mr. Peter Obi being on the ballot in 2027?
Let's stay with that, who is after him. Now it is clear that this is going to be a fight to finish. Let's even admit without conceding that the whole idea of the APC is to keep the parties trying to survive than trying to campaign. What will be your response going forward, now knowing that, in the words of my Port Harcourt friends, they'll say, now that the jungle is maturing?
No, we are focused. Like I said to you just yesterday, the party leadership received the code for uploading of candidates to the portal. So we are very focused, and we're not distracted. Every strategic angles have been put in place. What the NDC is doing presently now is, after, of course, uploading of its candidates to the INEC portal, they will be discussing if not, if that discussion is not on already, about bringing all aspirants who are aggrieved together to ensure that we form a united front, because we now know that indeed we have a big chance to win the 2027 election. So the best we can do is to form the broom philosophy of ensuring that we get together and have a united front, and that should be the focus. By the time campaigns commence in earnest, NDC will not be left out. We're not distracted. That court judgment that came on Friday only came to more like even announce the party further, because Nigerians now know a lot more about the NDC. Right. Because while the enemy was coming against you, the Lord turned it in our favor. Really.
All right. Well, I've never seen a politician that is not an incurable optimist. Even in the face of evidence, a politician always speaks positive. But beyond your optimism and reports of your rank swelling ahead of 2027, have candidates asked the leadership of the party what really were the details around the registration? Did the NDC follow due process in the registration of the party? Why did the party have to secure its registration via court order and not the regular process as other parties did?
The regular process is for INEC to register you, and everything within the law was followed. So when INEC had a challenge with that registration, we approached the court. The leadership then approached the court, and INEC was directed or ordered to register the party, and that is complying with the law. That's due process. So there was no backdoor end or any illegal means by which Nigeria Democratic Congress was registered. That we went to court and INEC was summoned and INEC, was ordered, and INEC did not appeal the case, because that's what the issue here now. If INEC had appealed it, possibly, maybe you will now say, oh, okay, INEC is not happy to follow the process of registration for of the NDC. No, it didn't appeal the case as far back as December, and the matter is far concluded. So due process was followed. There is no illegal way by which NDC came into existence. And being optimistic, oh yes. In fact, if there is any time that Nigerian people should be optimistic, not just politicians, as you refer to, all Nigerians should have hope now that there is a vista of hope available, a vista of opportunity available for us to help save our country, because Nigeria is presently in ruins, and everything possible that citizens can do through the ballot will be done. And that is why Mr. Peter Obi assures clearly that he will be on the ballot. And he is the hope that the Nigerian people now have, in the 2027 contest. So we are ready.
All right. Well, we'll have to take your explanation for now, even though there are more questions as to why the NDC is tagged, the party that secured registration by court order. But we'll pursue this conversation continuously.
Whether by court order or not, it is not an illegal.
And that's why I said we will take that's why I said we'll take your explanation on that for now, even though there are follow-ups. Mr. Dixon Iregu is a House of Reps aspirant for the Nigeria Democratic Congress. Thank you so much for coming through on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, it will be time to explore a very important conversation. Amid this round of xenophobic attacks and continuing marches of anti-immigration in South Africa, Nigeria-South Africa relations may have come under strain. What are the conversations being had, and what really is the true story about the disposition of South Africans towards other nationals in their country? Stay with us for details coming ahead. Welcome back. And so let's delve right into this conversation ahead of that march that is expected in South Africa. Today is June 30, that deadline given to, and it's a deadline given to those nationals of other African countries to exit the country. Of course, we've had calls by the South African president, just to reiterate that point, that the march must be peaceful as citizens go about expressing their displeasure. Now, let's have this conversation. First of all, we'll touch base with our correspondent in South Africa, Innocent Samosa, who's going to bring us up to speed with how that march is taking shape. Innocent joins us now from Johannesburg, I believe. Hello, Innocent. It's good to see you. Talk to us about this march. What are you seeing at this particular point in time?
Well, a very good morning to you, colleague, and our viewers at home. We are indeed coming to you from Johannesburg. This is the CBD. Of course, we're following the March and March protest. I mean, right now, I can tell you that all eyes are on Johannesburg as we follow this particular march. I mean, we're expecting hundreds to gather here at the Bears Nadir Square. We know that they are expected to actually go to Hillbrow, that's the other side of town. But you would know that this march started quite a few months ago. Of course, they've been talking about the fact that the crime in the country, corruption in the country is linked to illegal migration in the country. So they're saying that there are no jobs because of illegal migration in the country. So they then saw it fitting to say that we're going to then protest and show the government that actually we feel that the government has failed us. I can tell you now that I'm coming to you from Bears Nadir Square. Right now, it does seem as though the leaders, or should I say members of the March and March, they've started gathering here, and there is police presence, of course. I mean, the government has made it clear that they will not allow any criminality or harassing people on the streets. I mean, we do know that around 13,000 police have been deployed to really deal with the situation on the ground. It is going to be a busy day for us, I can tell you now, because they were supposed to start at 9, but I can tell you now that people are trickling in to come and really, register their demonstration or their dissatisfaction here to the government, colleague.
Yeah, Innocent. So let's talk about, I watched a clip of the interview done with Jacinta just yesterday by one radio station in Nigeria, and it sounded like she's distancing herself from the June 30th deadline, which is today. That the June 30th deadline was announced by Operation Dudula, the other group. I don't know the other gentleman's name, but I'm familiar with Jacinta's name. She leads the March and March. So what is going on with the harmonization in terms of the groupings over this anti-immigration movement? Because in that interview, she was saying, inevitably, they have to march today because they don't want people to hijack and, in other words, do crazy things.
Yeah, indeed, mixed messaging from the leaders of this protest. I mean, in fact, they're saying that, in fact, this is important to remind our viewers that it comes at the back of that Home Affairs fake post, and it since gained traction to say that today the foreigners have until today, the 30th, to really vacate and leave South Africa. So, but then she came out to say that the government is scaring people. We are going to protest peacefully. But I can tell you now that yesterday in Soweto, there was a bit of confusing sentiments, because it would seem like there were two marches. One that was March and March, and then the other one in front was the Phakela Mthakathi one, which was a bit confusing. I thought they're going to march all together. So what we're hearing on the ground at this point in time is that, yes, there is a march today, but they in a way try to distance themselves, because there were those elements, because the police made it clear that if anything happens, if we have another July unrest in the country, people like Jacinta will then be charged for perpetrating what we are seeing today. So I can tell you now that it's quite confusing, but we're waiting for them to come through. these are the questions that we'll put through to them to really understand what are the matters on the table, colleague.
So it does look like, when trouble is in the offing, they now shy away from taking responsibility for what they spearheaded. Is that what it's looking like, Innocent?
Yeah, it does look like that. But, well, I'm speculating here. I might be wrong because the story is developing. There's, elements of changes. There's leadership changing. So from where I'm standing, it does seem as though people are really trying to, take a back seat because they never thought or expected that it's going to gain this much traction. We do know that, the protests are happening in different parts of the country. And I mean, when the police says that if you are an instigator of this, you'll be charged, it means it's a serious matter. Because if you look at a normal holiday in South Africa, we're losing around 32 billion. If you crunch the numbers now, we're going around 26 billion because some shops are open, some are not open. But it's safe to say that when the economy is not doing well, it means that we're losing billions there and there. It means that there's not going to be employment for people. And are we going to blame foreigners? No, for me, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, this is what they're coming here to register their dissatisfaction today, to say that they need foreigners to leave the country. They want to fix their country. But I think this is a very problematic way to deal with it because they do not have the right to really terrorize people and be asking people to present papers. I mean, they should leave that job to the law enforcement authorities to deal with that, colleague.
Innocent, I know you're going to be standing by throughout because we will come to you, touch base with you and find out exactly what is happening, especially around that CBD area in Joburg. But not to put you on the spot, for those who are accusing the match leaders, whether it's Dula or Match and Match, that this is more Afrophobic than xenophobic. What are they responding? What's their response from what you've heard from them?
Well, they're saying that it's not xenophobic, it's not Afrophobic, but what other civil society groups are saying, they're saying that, excuse me, this could birth, xenophobic attacks. It could birth, Afrophobia. This week we had a march by the Batsonga-speaking people who feel like they're marginalized in the country. I mean, there's that death of Nhlamulo Sambo in Mossel Bay, where a Tsonga boy was killed allegedly for he couldn't speak Zulu. This is allegedly. I mean, the investigations are still continuing. So they decided to also take it to the streets and say that it cannot be that one tribe is superior than the other. So they're saying that South Africa has 11 official languages. So civil society groups and commentators in the country are saying that, yes, leaders are saying that this is not xenophobic, but they're saying that it could birth xenophobic violence. It could birth Afrophobia in the country, colleague.
Well, what we have seen is not far from Afrophobia and, xenophobia that has, turned violent in many cases. But Innocent, we'll definitely leave you shortly to keep your eyes more closely on activities around you. But talk to us about this particular one. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen nationals of other Africans exit the country in arrangements put in place by their governments. Why has this not tempered tensions in South Africa, especially among citizens demanding exit of other African nationals?
Please come again, colleague. Why was it not?
Why has this not tempered tensions among South Africans? Why has it not tempered the agitation for other nationals to exit the country?
Yeah, well, I think many countries, particularly in the SADC region, they were caught napping because they didn't expect, for example, the likes of Malawi. They had a huge number of Malawians camping outside the Malawian consulate in Johannesburg, simply because the government, remember that when there are two processes here that the government was running. One was the repatriation, number two was deportation. Now, the repatriation happens through the country where the people come from. For example, Malawi was supposed to fund the repatriation process. Now, Malawi apparently they didn't have enough funds to deal with that. Then South Africa had to come in, and now it's a dual process in that it's now a deportation. A deportation where it's South Africa using its funds to actually take the people outside of the country. Right. But the problem here that we're facing, colleague, is that we're taking out the people out of the country, right? But the problem again is that they're not recorded. What are the chances of these people coming back into the country? Because we do know that their lives are here. They do have businesses here. Their lives is here. They some have businesses, some have properties in the country. So the fact that they're being taken out of the country, but not. Yes, colleague.
Yes, I know we have a lot to unpack with you because we're going to touch base with you as well. We're following up on and literally watching whatever is happening behind you at the CBD area to ensure that we get exactly how this match will play out. So not to worry, Innocent, because we have to catch up on other conversation. We'll touch base with you in just a moment. So stand by for us, but we'll need to move on now. Thank you, Innocent. We'll come back to you. Let's bring in our next guest, the CEO of Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Max Bokwana, joining us on the program. Mr. Bokwana, thank you so much for coming on the program. Mr. Bokwana, if you can hear us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jeff. Great to be with you this morning.
We saw the document from the Thabo Mbeki Foundation highlighting their own thoughts over these issues that has to do with anti-immigration, xenophobia, whatever name you will call it. But from the interpretation of the foundation, what exactly are we dealing with here?
Jeff, the first thing we are facing is really the death of the continental symbolism. The idea of Pan-Africanism has been on the offing for more than 100 years. So for us to see our countries seemingly tearing each other apart, it's an anathema to that very idea. The second thing that is quite clear, at least to us, is the vacuum that has been created by leadership. You must ask yourself a question. Has President Tinubu and President Ramaphosa spoke about this and prepare a plan in terms of how to deal with a matter of this nature? Has the AU convened to say, how do we deal with matters of this nature? Because of that vacuum now has been occupied by overzealous, highly tempered people that we don't know. You are battling to talk about Jacintas, Pagelum Tarati, and Gizwe. These are the people that we don't know. But these are the people that have occupied the vacuum that has been left by leadership. What then they do, they exploit the real grievances of our people. And in exploitation of those grievances of our people, they then are scapegoating the realities that South Africa faces. South Africa faces an economic crisis. South Africa faces the deepening levels of poverty. South Africa faces serious unemployment. It faces homelessness. It faces despondency and hopelessness. None of these things are the creation of immigrants, documented or undocumented. And as a result, we might stop dealing with the problems that we have to face in reality, because these are the problems of us as South Africans. These are not the problems of immigrants of whatever shape. But I think the most important thing that I thought it's important that we communicate, especially to broadcasters like yourselves in the continent, is to understand that there are serious politics of dividing the continent. If you could imagine Obasanjo and Mbeki standing up and saying this continent must be unified, this continent must have its own economic plan, this continent must stand toe to toe with the other continents. And that was a powerful position of where this continent was. But it's always in the interest of the detractors of our continent that we remain divided. It is not escaping us that the crisis you are seeing from South Africa today is a fully sponsored crisis to isolate South Africa from the rest of the continent. And if you isolate South Africa from the rest of the continent, the possibilities of the continent to have the quite correct political and economic leadership, you're not going to have. So I think we must be circumspect when we're dealing with this. But just the last point to make, the government here is quite insistent on the application and the implementation of the rule of law. It has put together proper security arrangements to make sure that this thing does not degenerate into a Rwanda situation or into a July 2021 situation. The churches in this country have called out the vigilantism that is accompanying all of these marches. The major serious political parties, not the opportunistic parties, have distanced themselves from vigilantism around this. Even the taxi industry and the think tanks have made it very clear that there are no foreigners, the African foreigners in Africa. And I think that stance needs to be communicated loudly. And we mustn't give in to the detractors of what we need to say. African continental unity is essential for the success of our continent. It's a joke to think any of our countries, any of the 54 countries in the continent will succeed without one another. That's really the perspective, Jeff, that we come from as a foundation.
Profound thoughts there. There are no foreigners in Africa, but sadly it's not ringing through in one of the most beautiful countries on the continent at the moment. But you did say that, pardon me, I'm trying to recall your thoughts, that this is a well-sponsored crisis to isolate South Africa from the rest of the continent. Sponsored by who?
South Africa has taken very, very unpopular positions. You will have seen the position that the United States has taken against South Africa. You will have seen the positions that Israel has taken against South Africa. You will understand that South Africa is still seriously a neo-colonial state. That's why in your earlier interviews, you were asking a question, why aren't we looking at the white undocumented immigrants? And we're looking at the African undocumented immigrants. So if you put 1 and 1, you will get to 3 around those issues. And I think it's a very, very serious political game. The people you are talking about that have been organizing the marches are not well-endowed people, but they have been able to move around the country with huge resources. The question you must ask, where do those resources come from to organize all of these activities, the buses and everything else, and in a sustained manner? So that's one. But secondly, Buki, you will recall that South Africa is going to a local government election now in November. And one of the major tasks of these opponents of South Africa is actually to displace the ruling African National Congress. And in many instances, these spontaneous but this time much more organized marches and these anti-immigrant sentiments are coming out before the elections. It's interesting that the parties that are in a very serious mission seeking to displace the ruling African National Congress are the ones that are in full support of all of these activities. Further, the people that control the economy in South Africa, which are largely not your black people, it's in their interest as well that you do not have a party like the African National Congress continuing with its programs of redress in dealing with South Africa. So there is a very, very serious political context upon which all of this thing is happening.
So let's talk about, because now we have gone political. So I know Action SA has been mentioned, Patriotic Alliance has been mentioned, IFP has been mentioned. We can call names of the opposition parties who the ANC is accusing of being behind this movement and fanning the embers of this agitation. But on the flip side, they will also say, these guys will also say that it's a failure of the ANC to be able to manage and aggregate the economy such that the inequality we see in South Africa today is not different from what it was in the past. Maybe there's an improvement, but significantly, the whites are dominating the economy, and the inequality between the white and black is almost as day and night in this sense. So whilst fingers will be pointed at maybe other political parties in the opposition, isn't it also necessary to call the ANC out on his own failure to be able to manage the economy effectively? Look at what happened in the last election. For the first time, they were not able to form up a government. They needed a coalition. They had to bring in the DAs and the other parties to be able to form a government, if you get my drift.
Absolutely correct, Jeff. It's not just the failure of the economy, it's actually the failure of general leadership, the failure to provide the correct vision for the country, the failure to inspire the nation, the failure to put on the table a workable and inspiring economic plan. In the past few years, South Africa has regressed, and that regression has been a burden on the shoulders of the poor. And the reason you have this explosion is that in addition of that burden of economic difficulties on the shoulders of the poor is also expected to accommodate the rest of our brothers and sisters from the continent. As you can see, these large numbers, whether are from Malawi or from Nigeria or from anywhere else, these are the people that are not occupying what is called the white enclaves or these rich spaces in South Africa. They are occupying the same spaces, this poor that is meant to carry the burden of a failing South Africa. So that's really where this exploitation comes from. That's why I was saying earlier, that's a vacuum that has been created, and nature doesn't allow a vacuum. And these leaders of March on March or any of these organizations are occupying exactly that vacuum and are exploiting very, very genuine grievances that these people have. So it's not a question of military, it's not a question of blaming one another, it's a question of leadership. That leadership in South Africa, that leadership in this continent.
I'm trying to tie the poverty that you often refer to with the same location where nationals of other African countries have found as a fertile ground to actualize their dreams. That's an aside. But more importantly, Madiba was an advocate of peace of forgiveness. I remember Desmond Tutu, who did say famously that if, one is neutral in the face of an injustice, then they have become the oppressor themselves. Former President Thabo Mbeki, who is the founder of your own organization, is an advocate for integration on the African continent. Why then, if we have these leaders who had provided inspiration in the past, is there this disconnect between this generation of South Africans and, the foundation of the ideals that these leaders had provided in the past?
Buki, who is there in the continent that today provides this continental vision? Who is there that on daily basis speaks about this African integration? Who is there today that constantly speak about the movement of goods and the movement of people? And I think all of us as Africans must confront this issue, because what is happening in South Africa is really, from my point of view, the absence of exactly what you're talking about, of this bold leadership that must not look at in our continent simply on nationalistic basis. And we need to begin to look our continent on the basis, as Nkosazana Zuma was saying yesterday, that the universe gave us Africa, but Berlin gave us South Africa and Nigeria. So what are we supposed to advance? Are we supposed to advance what the universe gave us, or are we supposed to advance what Berlin has given us? So we really are in need of this leadership, and that leadership must come from every other quarter, exactly to say our idea is the idea of a united, a prosperous, a peaceful, a developmental Africa. And we are not going to have that if we've got leaders like the leaders of the marches that you have in South Africa today.
Mr. Max, we'll continue to touch base. It's an ongoing conversation. Our eyes are on all areas, especially Joburg, where this march will be taking place. But your insights are quite valid. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We really appreciate. Max Bokwana is the CEO of Thabo Mbeki Foundation. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Bukola.
Yes, and from here, let's get more insight into what exactly is happening at the government-to-government level, specifically between Nigeria and South Africa. And joining us for this next one is Mr. Alexander Ajayi. He's the acting Nigerian High Commissioner to South Africa. Mr. Ajayi, good morning, sir, and welcome to the Morning Brief. We may need you to unmute your device so that we can hear you clearly. And while we're hoping that that comes through seamlessly, let's begin with what is the update as far as the next batch of Nigerians who are, returning home in a couple of hours. I believe that will bring the number to somewhere around 500 plus or thereabouts. Give us an update of these Nigerians, perhaps, some of the stories about these Nigerians that you can tell us at this particular point in time, what this means for them.
Thank you very much. As you are fully aware, our people are quite tensed in terms of wanting to return back home, given the situation that is going on in South Africa right now, particularly the antics of the March on March people and the general atmosphere pervading the country itself. So right now we have repatriated, as you said, in the next couple of hours, maybe precisely in 2 hours' time, another batch will be landing in Lagos, and that will be the total number that we have repatriated so far to about 596. So overall, we've got about 1,387 Nigerians who voluntarily came forward to want to be repatriated. So, and we shall be doing back-to-back airlifting. After today, definitely there is going to be another batch coming in to Lagos on Thursday, then follow up like that till Monday. Another one definitely is also slated for Monday, while we are also looking purposefully at next week, Thursday, to Capitol. So right now, we are, focused. We are on track with regards to evacuating our nationals who have willingly come forward to want to be repatriated.
I would like to ask two questions in one. If you miss one, I'll remind you. First is, the ones that are coming back, are they all undocumented? I want to also put that on record, because I remember NIDCOM chairman saying that they didn't do anything criminal. They were just going about their lives, because of the pressure and the fear and the anxiety, they had to come back. So all of these people that are coming back, are they all undocumented? And what's their the story about being unable to be documented in South Africa? That's one question. Maybe you respond to that first.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you capture it well by saying the story of the processes of getting them documented in South Africa. In the last 3 to 4 years, there have been deluge of applications at the South African Home Office, which were not attended to, you understand, due to systemic issues. So because of this, many, not only Nigerian nationals, many other nationals were caught in this web of delay, you understand. So you cannot rightly claim that these were undocumented, because most of them came to the country legally, in terms of how somebody should migrate. So it is on the basis of wanting to now renew their papers, and get it, when the first one expired, that they were caught up in the delay, unnecessary delays. So when people try to say they were undocumented, I quite disagree with that, because some of them, based on experience and what we have been seeing, have had their papers lag behind at the Home Office for years, So that is in that context, you understand. Then in terms of people coming back, the whole exercise is voluntary repatriation. So it's important for us to underscore that. So people that are coming are those that are willingly show interest in coming back to the country. And that is what we are doing, and which is one of the cardinal responsibilities of Nigerian governments.
So let's ask the question that is on the minds of perhaps many Nigerians in South Africa, and broadly speaking now, and which is, what is the conversation that is being had at the government-to-government level? Our last guest did say Presidents Tinubu and Ramaphosa having discussions on how this can be solved in an enduring basis.
Thank you. On our part, we've gone far in terms of having a series of conversations with the South African government. Not only, it didn't start today. In fact, you will recall that in 2024, my president and the South African president, they sat down in Cape Town here, to look at the whole issue of our binational commission. And one key thing that came out from that binational commission was the imperative of concluding what we call early warning mechanism, MOU, memorandum of understanding on early warning mechanism, that will help us to notify each other in terms of any likelihood of threat or anything that's going to cause ruptures in the relations between the two countries. And that is what is happening today, also fall within that context, because the early warning mechanism MOU takes very important care of that, in terms of two countries having obligation to come up to each other and to advise each other and to look at the situation that might likely pose a threat to their relations and quickly come together to nip it in the bud. So even currently, both presidents are speaking. And I said, as I've always been saying, that our own president would have even carried out this evacuation a long time ago, as far as April, if left to him. Because when we saw the signal, in terms of this March on March, because this whole idea started in March, that's why you see they first called themselves, that's why they derived the name from March in March. That's what they started with. Then when they did that in March, and they feel that maybe some people is gaining currency with some people, so they turn it to March on March, that is continuous marching. You understand? So they have their grievances with their government, which we don't want to delve into. But in terms of our own, our president had done everything possible to see that, okay, conversation is kept on going and discussions are underway. And it was when he got to a point where he feel that, well, anybody who is willing to leave should be assisted to come back, that he said, okay, please bring the people back as long as they show willingness to come. And that is why we call it voluntary. So in terms of discussion are ongoing, you know. And on their part, you know, I must say that on Friday last week, there was a discussion with the entire diplomatic community in South Africa. We were all invited to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where they were trying to explain their own positions with regard to things, distancing themselves from the situation, and tried. So a lot of questions were asked and clarifications were sought, you know, even from Nigeria as well. So in terms of discussion, yes, there have been high-level discussion behind the scene, and there have also been diplomatic consultations.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack, because I did watch an interview, I think, by Nigerian Info, where Jacinta was diplomatically trying to distance herself from today's deadline, essentially, and said they had to match because so that people don't hijack the entire process. But let's stay with our people. And my basic question will have to do with, because when they say, we can argue about undocumented immigrants on this one, but sometimes when they say they are taking over people are taking over their jobs, sometimes these jobs are actually created by the Nigerians themselves. So I don't know what it means to take over a job that was not created. Why I'm asking that question, what's going to happen to these businesses? That's on one hand. Or what's happening? What's the conversation around these businesses? What happens? And then people who have wives or children, what happens to them as well?
Thank you very much. In terms of the businesses, just 3 days ago, myself and the South Africa Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs were together and we were discussing this. So I took up the discussion with her, and we have agreed that we are going to document, we are going to ask our people who are returning to begin to document what they are leaving behind. And that was the message yesterday before this set that are due to land in Lagos. I've asked them before they left yesterday to document very accurately those things they were leaving behind in terms of businesses, in terms of even cars, movable properties and immovable properties, so that we can now take it up with the South African government. That is the next step we are going to do. So this repatriation is not going to end just taking people to Nigeria. We are going to systematically follow up on those things, those informations given to us. And I told them to be very accurate with what they are going to give, because we are going to work with the South African government with that, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the police, to get the exact location of all these businesses and shops, you know, and properties, you know, and, you know, presented it to the South African government for possible compensation, because we will not, allow the properties, the labor that people have suffered to build over the years to just go down the drain or be taken over by some people. Then the second leg of your question is what happens to what about our people? You know, the women and children. You know, if you see the number of people that are coming back, majority of them are women and children. You understand? And we have actually prioritized them. You know, if you come to the mission now, I have here close to 100 people I'm taking care of in terms of the welfare, in terms of, shelter. I mean, giving them appropriate shelter just before they leave for Nigeria. So we are doing that. The only area where we are still having discussion with the South African government is in the area of, for instance, you have Nigerian married to South African women, or Nigerian women married to South African men. So what are the product? What is the fate of the product of this union? That is the children. So one thing that we agree and we are discussing with them in series of meetings we have been having is that those children, as much as they don't want them to be repatriated based on the South Africa, because many of them are holding South African IDs and South African passports. So in the context, you can't repatriate them, because in the face of the law, those children are not actually still, they are partly Nigerian, but because of the document they are holding, they are South African. So we have agreed that we are going to process normal visas for those children. So alongside their movement, so that they will be able to travel, either travel with their parents or anytime they so wish to visit Nigeria or to go, we will assist them as much as possible to get back to the country.
This particular point just shows how complex the issues have become. And, someone is asking, what about those who refuse to come? How do the governments then protect them? But beyond that, another part of the conversation is those whose businesses have been wrongfully taken away from them that we have seen in those videos. Are there conversations also about how to get them compensation, how to help them seek redress?
Yes, definitely so. Because we are not going to allow, a situation like that. There was a particular incident in a place called Escorts, where the mayor, defying all conventional courtesy and decorum, came out to ask to collect the keys of some of these shops owned by Nigerians. Of course, there are many Ghanaians in that area. Collect those keys and want to distribute it and giving it out to the South African apprentices that are under these people. We've taken up with them. In fact, I would have been meeting the provincial governor, so like our own governor in Nigeria, of KwaZulu-Natal, who has agreed to a meeting, because after that incident, I wrote several series of letters to all the top officials in South Africa, asking to tell me why that is taking place. And so the fallout of that was the meeting I'm supposed to have with the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, where that mayor comes from. So, and happily, even the people have taken him to court. So the last ruling that happened was an injunction on the mayor that he should return those keys and allow those businesses to cooperate. Then the trial is continuing. So we, on our own part, that is why I said we are documenting some of the properties, some of those that are affected, particularly those that are living, and taking it up with the South African government. And if it's also require seeking a legal redress, if all diplomatic, because of course, we have to explore diplomatic channels to resolve all this before we resort to conventional legal method. So just to answer you, that process is in place.
All right, Mr. Judge, my colleague did ask a question. I don't know whether he touched it about the people, the Nigerians who are saying they are not going anywhere. What happens to them? In addition to that, because you just talked about illegal nationalization of assets of Nigerians, and I'm happy the effort that has been made to make sure that doesn't happen. There was also the story all over the social media about a Nigerian man that was attacked, I think in Joburg, and killed. I don't know whether you heard that story, whether it's true or false. Maybe you can help us clarify that as well.
There was a that story came out yesterday, and it referenced a province called Mpumalanga. Mpumalanga is about, where it happened is in a place called, if I'm not mistaken, Nesprut or so. So it's about 5 hours to Pretoria. It's on the way to Kruger National Park. So we immediately got that. We set up machinery in terms of seeking more information as to what happened, what the circumstances of that death. The story we are getting initially right now is disturbing, but we are still waiting for police, because the police have told us they are conducting initial investigation into that, and they will submit that to us. So we are waiting for that, so that in order not to jump into conclusion, so that we know. Yes, it happens. It involves a Nigerian national, but the circumstances of that death, what happened?
Senator.
All right. By many levels, this conversation has been reassuring about what is exactly happening behind the scenes to protect Nigerians in South Africa, those who choose to return and those who choose to stay. But more importantly, we look forward to the results. And we must thank you very profusely for coming through on this conversation. We've been talking with the Deputy Nigeria High Commissioner to South Africa this morning. The acting Nigeria High Commissioner to South Africa, Mr. Alexander Ajayi, who joined us virtually from South Africa. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. And
I will return to South Africa, where our correspondent, Innocent Samosa, is standing by to bring us up to speed with the March on March protest that is taking place today, June the 30th. I believe the deadline issued by South African youth groups for foreign African nationals to exit the country. Innocent, I believe you have updates for us already. Is the crowd swelling from where you are?
Indeed, colleague, a small number has started arriving here, and they've been singing, and we've done interviews. I spoke to some of them. The main question that I was asking them is whether or not South Africa is isolating itself from the African continent. And the many people that I spoke to here, they're saying, no, we are just enforcing our laws. And they have a view that it does seem as though the government has failed them in terms of enforcing the immigration laws in the country. So those are some of the topics that I'm emerging here. As you can hear behind me, there's a small number of, the Umkhonto weSizwe is the main opposition party in the country. They've started arriving here, singing songs like Siaya, Siaya, we are going forward, we are going forward. So that's the message here on the ground so far, colleague.
So I wonder if you also asked them about the propriety and legality of their actions. Many have been asking if they're rightly positioned to demand, that foreign African nationals leave the country, or even to demand in the first place if, a migrant is documented or undocumented. If you have asked, what's their response?
Colleague, please come again. I could not hear the question, the last part of your question.
I was asking if you've also spoken with them about the propriety and legality of their actions, whether they have the right to ask undocumented migrants to leave the country, and what's their response?
Well, in fact, one gentleman told me that in the country there's something called citizen's arrest, where they arrest someone and they call the police. But I don't think in this case it doesn't work, because we're talking about immigration laws that has got a lot of elements. I mean, when you're talking about citizens arrest, you can't arrest someone if you don't understand migration itself. So it's a topic that needs authorities, because they understand how to deal with migration itself. So there's a lot of people who are a little bit confused about how to go about this issue. But again, the government has made it clear that no one should ask people to present their details. They are not allowed to do that.
So you're mentioning that we have members of MK. Which other political party is there that you can spot? Because if now the opposition party, which is one of the lead opposition party that displays EFF in terms of performance in the last election, then this is turning more political than anything else. Don't you think so?
Indeed, colleague. MK has been part of these processes for a long time now. And one would say, one wonders why political parties, draw themselves towards such matches. But again, it's easy to conclude that because you know that it's election year. I mean, parties do, they would go as far as supporting some of the things that are not in line with what they believe, simply because they want votes. But they're saying that it's their principle as a party to really support organizations such as March and March to deal with illegal migration in the country. But the bottom line is that we understand that there is an element of really wanting to garner more votes moving into the local government elections, colleague.
As we let you go, Innocent, so talk to us about the planned, the routes. How do they want to march? What does this march constitute of? Are they just marching just to make their voices heard? Are they going to do what we've been seeing on social media, stopping by people's shop to harass people? What exactly is the nature of today's march?
They are complaining to me that learning about what?
My question. Right, some audio interference
coming through there. But of course, we'll get more reports and insights from Innocent Samusa on how the March on March protests would unfold and progress today. And of course, a recap of how it played out later on the news at 10. But of course, we've gotten as much news as possible as far as the March on March protest is concerned. And this is where we touch down on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Sunrise Daily is up next. We'll be back again tomorrow, of course. And I am Bukola Koka.
Trust Us Channels Television is going to bring you everything you need to know as far as the issue of the march is concerned in South Africa. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.